Okay, good afternoon to all of you who have just joined us for this pretty interesting topic, on the WhatsApp debate, to move or not to move. I would like to do a poll from all of you, and let me share my screen so that you can see the polls that I like to conduct, okay? So for those of you who are online, are you able to see my screen? So Celine, are you able to see my screen here? Yeah?
Yep, clear.
So for those of you who are new to the Data Protection Excellence Network, I want to welcome all of you to Data Protection Excellence Network. We pride ourselves to be the largest community of data protection professionals in the region, And what I want to do right now is, if you could open up a web browser window, go to menti.com, open up the browser, and let's do a very quick poll here. Enter the code 9072272, right? As you answer this poll, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to only include those that you are actively using. It might be installed, but you may not be actively using. So we do a quick poll here to all of our participants who have joined us, okay? So let's just wait and let you folks share your inputs. In the meantime, for my panel of speakers here, right, feel free to have a chat. I will be introducing all of you shortly. So hello, Lyn,
Hello, Kevin.
And hello, Andrew, Celine, and Dr. Prapanpong.
Hello there.
Yeah, are you guys ready for our debate? Because I'm going to be asking you a whole bunch of questions, which everyone has. A lot of us have heard all kinds of versions on the internet. We may have read it on Facebook, on news articles, and all of that. And we're not here to repeat those messages, because what we are going to be doing is we're going to go down to the actual operational aspect to look at what this really means, because not everyone is a lawyer, and we are also aware that there are lots of data protection professionals, right? So we probably have a mix of audience. So Lyn, you are going to be our legal expert here, right, to cover everything that is legal. So I'm going to be counting on you, Celine, you are a psychologist by training. I am going to be asking you questions from both an operational perspective, as well as your thoughts in terms of being a psychologist, and explain what is actually happening. We've got lots of people migrating from the WhatsApp platform to other platforms. So that's what I'll be seeking your views on, And Dr. Prapanpong, welcome to you. You are all the way from Bangkok,
That's right.
All right. So you are going to be taking on the regulator's perspective. Now, because our community may be familiar with Celine as well as Lyn, while we wait for the rest of the folks to come in to this web conference, can you quickly give an introduction in terms of who you are and what you are doing with regards to the new Thai PDPA?
So hello, folks. My name is Prapanpong, but you can call me Ed. That's easier for you to remember. So my role into the personal data protection is that I'm advisor to the Secretary General of the Personal Data Protection Committee of Thailand, which is about to be set up in a few months, hopefully in June this year.
Thank you for that. And so I'll be seeking your views to wear the regulator's hat, as we discuss the debate here. And we have also another guest. His name is Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the broadcast, And I'm hoping that you can give us your perspective as a developer, because as you can guess, we have heard writers writing about their perception of privacy issues, but I thought it'd be fun to actually have someone who actually does the programming on mobile apps, because not many people know about what the developer has to do with the functionality and inevitably have access to personal data. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Andrew is our CTO. So Andrew, as we go through the questions, I would like you to be very honest, yeah. And while you explain a developer's perspective, try to make it as simple as possible so that everyone understands what exactly is at stake. Everyone understands the perspective from a developer, and more interestingly, can the data be abused? Yeah. So, folks, for all of you out there, we are going to try to make it as simple to understand as possible. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, are the speakers, are you guys ready in terms of starting our session? Lyn, Andrew, Dr. P, Celine, are you guys ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
So here's what we are going to be doing. So again, a warm welcome to all of you. For those of you who are our participants who have attended our courses, who are certified privacy professionals, managers, and so forth, welcome to our webinar. Okay. In the following 40 minutes or so, we'll be talking about the WhatsApp debate and the big question here, to move or not to move. Now, as we shared with all of you, we've very lucky or very fortunate to have 4 experts, and we deliberately asked them to come onto the webinar because they bring different perspectives here. So, Celine, very quickly, would you like to give a quick introduction of yourself? Yeah, and we heard from Dr. Prapanpong just now. Celine, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kevin. So hello, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm from Straits and I head the learning development team. So working with the programs, working with the various DPOs in the organizations, doing a whole bunch of trainings over the last few years. And in the previous, my previous life, I was actually in the education world, working with students, working with teachers, and subsequently going to other organizations to do learning strategies and so on. So these are some of the background and looking at how do you go into working with change for organizations right now.
You are a psychologist by training, yeah?
Yeah, in that sense, I did the area of psychology. At that point in time, it was probably in its infancy in the area called social cognition, which means understanding how people think and make decisions. And right now, everybody's thinking and looking at that. And especially with the issues of Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, and so on, this has now become the forefront of people's concerns.
Excellent. Thank you for the introduction. And Dr. P, can you introduce yourself again? Because since the time we started to now, there are many more people who just joined us. So very quickly, introduction about yourself.
Thanks, Kevin. Hello, everybody. You can call me Ed. That's the nickname. Thai name can be very long sometimes. So my basically my role now is an advisor to the Secretary General of the Personal Data Protection Committee of Thailand, which is about to be set up within a few months. So hopefully we are going to be up and running by June.
Thank you for the introduction. And we have Lyn. So Lyn, you are going to be providing the legal perspective in terms of our debate here, yeah? So a quick introduction of yourself.
Okay, well, a very good afternoon to everybody. I'm a lawyer in private practice in Singapore. I've been working quite a lot with Straits Interactive for 5 years now. And in my overall practice, I concentrate on data protection in Singapore, in ASEAN, in APAC, in Europe, pretty much everywhere that technology takes us these days.
Excellent. And then we have Andrew. So Andrew, you are going to be bringing the developer perspective, and later we'll be explaining some technical stuff in simple English. Yeah. Would you like to give a quick introduction on what you actually do here? Yeah.
So I handle all the systems that DPEX uses in our consultancies. On the side, I also advise startups on privacy and getting their products out to market. Yeah.
All right. So with that, I'm going to start the panel discussion. So we shared with everyone that in today's session, we're going to be addressing all of these questions here, but I'm not going to be asking the questions in this order, but in the discussion, the answers that you folks give will definitely answer these questions here. So to kick off the first question, Celine, I would like to ask you, just to get everyone at the same page, yeah? Can you tell us what exactly has just happened, right? Give us a quick overview, but please summarize from a layman's perspective of what has happened in terms of the latest WhatsApp privacy policy update. But more importantly, as a psychologist, share with us why people are panicking. Everyone is now worried about privacy concerns. Over to you, Celine.
Thank you, Kevin. So all of you probably heard the first announcement, right? A few days ago when WhatsApp and Facebook started saying, okay, we're going to do this. And you would have seen on your phone, all right, that you need to agree to certain things, yeah? And then as I watched it, right, what transpired then was the news picked it up. Now, what's been interesting, which nobody has actually mentioned this, is that a lot of the initial news came from India, yeah? And a lot of the news, the way the news was written, created panic and fear in people and saying, oh, Facebook is going to do this. Oh, WhatsApp is going to do this. And I'm like, okay, let's really look at what it is that they are doing. And of course, you do have a couple of people that says, move, don't use WhatsApp more, move and use these other applications, right? But if you look at the details of some of the things that's been mentioned, you actually find that there's misinformation that's out there that's been provided in some of these news places. You also find that basically, guys, there's not much change in the WhatsApp app that you're using on a personal basis. What is changed is the WhatsApp business app, which is a separate app to integrate with Facebook. All right, and they were moved by, I guess, February 8th or something. All right. Now, why people would be panicking? Very often you see this happen, and you guys saw this, happening in the States for various other situations, right? There's what we would call a knee-jerk reaction where it's go, oh, I better move. Okay, let's go. All right. And we see this in Singapore very often when you see people queuing up, right? It's human psychology. You see people queuing up, oh, I better go and queue up at the same time. So when you hear in the news and it gets repeated and repeated all the time, and nobody checks the facts, nobody checks the what's called provenance, the source of the facts, then you have misinformation that gets expanded and that gets bigger. All right. And there's another area is that the people, when they talk about encryption and all that, most laymen don't understand the technical aspects of encryption and what it is. But a bigger and even bigger confusion is the difference between data, metadata, yeah? And that is the biggest areas where Facebook was trying to express, but whoever wrote this, all right, didn't put it in a way that the lay people could understand between the difference between data and metadata.
Just before, for the benefit of our audience, right, can one of you explain, okay, so let me frame it like this. There are people who are concerned that the privacy issues are such that WhatsApp can actually view your contents, yeah? So we know actually they can't because it is encrypted. So there's no way that WhatsApp can read your message, view your video, listen on your audio, and so forth. What they are sharing is metadata. Yeah. So can one of you explain what is metadata? So Andrew, perhaps at this point in time, you can just explain what is metadata. We always see the words data about data, right?
Yeah.
What does that actually mean, right? Yeah.
So metadata is data about data. So for example, when you set a chat out, it can include things like the time that it was sent out, where you sent it out from. For example, if you open WhatsApp from a website, I can include the URL, your IP address, and all those. So these are not your actual chat contents, but more like the context of where you sent the message from.
So later you're going to tell us more, because I want you to explain how what the metadata is being used for, right? Because everyone is all looking at it from a negative perspective. I would like to hear your views later as you explain the permissions and all of those. Yeah.
Yes.
So very quickly before I'm going to focus on two parts of the discussion. What has changed? Celine, you mentioned that the changes relate to the new business hosting services from Facebook and integration with all of those, which we will talk later.
Yep.
And what has not changed? Yeah. So Lyn, can you just quickly give us a snapshot of what has not changed? Because we understand that actually nothing has changed since 2016 because WhatsApp has always been sharing data with Facebook. Yeah. Can you quickly give us some insights to that? And then we will focus on what has changed. Yes?
Yeah, certainly. And I'd have to say from a personal perspective, I have a very negative view of Facebook, thanks to Cambridge Analytica and some of the other things. So I was inclined to believe what I was hearing by the various commentators. But the next thing I did was went and looked at the privacy policy that WhatsApp published. And it's actually hardly any different from what they've done before. They've expressed it more clearly, I think, in some cases, and they've added a bit more detail. But the changes were not the ogre that I expected to see, but actually quite decent and reasonable changes.
Okay, so let's zoom down, right, on two parts. We'll start with what has not changed, and then we'll discuss with what has changed, yeah? So if you take a look here, Andrew, this is where I would like to ask you, right? And when we read about in many news sources, they have actually published this comparison between the different messaging programs in terms of what kind of information, yeah, the messaging apps have access to. Can you explain to our folks out there what this means? And yeah, and we'll take it from there.
So what this chart does show you is that they claim that they are not using your data. So for example, Signal says that they are not using your contact details. But when we look down into the mobile app, right, they do need this for certain functions. So,
okay, so I'll stop you there. So this is basically from the privacy labels. You are just saying that all this information is what the developers actually declare to Apple. Is that correct?
Yes. So these are what we call the privacy labels and what they declare as part of their submission to the App Store.
Okay, so you got curious. So as a developer, you just told me that you looked at the permissions, what the developer actually do, and you gave me this sheet. Now, before I elaborate, can you explain to everyone as a developer, in order for the application to work, yeah, what must be done, and we'll move from there, yeah?
Yes. So these are sensitive data. So when an app wants to work and wants to use any of these, they ask you for permissions. So this is like a small pop-up to say that you give the app permission to use like the storage or your contacts and all that. Yeah.
So based on this, we will agree that the statement that applications do not access data is not true, because in order for the app to work, can you give us an instance, for example, would it be correct if I go to WhatsApp and I want to create a group, I will need the permissions of the contacts. Otherwise, I will not be able to create the WhatsApp group. Is that right?
Yes, so like whenever you create a WhatsApp group, you need to pull out the contact list of all your friends, and then you can add them in. And if the contact is not you, you will need also to access the contact list to add them in.
So the permissions are crucial. If you don't give that permissions, those functions cannot be performed. Is that right?
Yes, you can't, the app won't work.
So the same logic would also be for pictures. When we go to WhatsApp, we take a quick photo, you have to give permission so that the pictures, the camera can work, and then you can send the photos. Okay, I just want to make sure we are clear on that. Yeah. So therefore, the statement, is this accurate that all the apps do not access personal data? They do, but from a functional perspective in order to perform a function.
Yes, so like we said, they can access and use the data. It's a matter of whether they are doing it on top of it. Yeah.
Okay, let me just point you what you just said. As a developer, if you had access to all of these things, are you able to abuse it? Be honest.
Yes, you can. So
Give
like,
me
for example, if I have access to your storage, I can actually put in a malware and things like that onto your phone. Yeah.
Can you save my phone list and contact list? If I given you, the app gives permission, you can save it anywhere you want to. Would that
Yes,
be
you
correct?
can. Yes.
Okay, everyone listen to this, okay? So that's the reason why they declare in their privacy policy what their policy is, but that's one thing, yeah? Whether they do it or not, it's a matter of what goes on behind the scenes. Is that correct, Andrew?
Yes, that's correct.
Now let's take a look and let's peel the onion totally. And folks, in case you don't know, this can be found on the Google platform, on the Play Store. Just go to the apps, pull out the permissions. You will actually see that at the system level, the app has got access to all of these here. Yeah. And what is curious is you will notice that all the apps have got, it's like you giving the phone to them so that the messaging app can perform its functionality. Yeah. Now, looking at this, Andrew, would you like to share with us your points here? Because Signal says that they only approximate the location, but they do have access to the precise location. Can you comment on that from a developer's perspective?
Yeah, so some of this location data is coming out from your Wi-Fi. It's very much like the trace together where it's used to pinpoint your location. Yeah.
Okay, so those features are there. It's whether they want to do it or not. And we know
Yeah.
that the folks, I mean, the Signal has declared that they don't use it, but that function is available to them in the application. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so we noticed that they use the calendar. Yeah. And I'll leave Lyn, I will let you comment on the fact that the calendar functionality is actually open to Signal, but the rest doesn't tap that functionality. So this one you can't bluff because it's at the OS level, right? It's not something you declare. This is something that is there from a functional perspective. Now, before we go on to the rest of the speakers, one last one. Andrew, you send this up. Can you explain to us that if you take a look, all the apps, you notice that the Signal application has access to the SMS part. Can you tell me what is the good intention as a developer?
They want to manage all your SMSs securely through their app. So that's why they're asking for an SMS.
So they want to replace your SMS, would that be right? So what is the pros and the cons? What is the con if the fact that they have access to the text messages?
So like, for example, when you do iBanking, your iBank will send you an SMS OTP. They can potentially read and use the OTP to sign in if someone hacks the app.
Okay, and what's the not so good part of it? They can view all your messages.
Yes, they can review all your messages too.
Okay, folks, I hope you're listening to this. We want to give you a balanced view, but this is from a functional perspectives, okay? And very quickly, before we go off to the next one, Andrew, any other summary you want to give as a developer? If you don't have all these things, would you be able to run those functionalities that we see in our messaging apps?
No, the app would stop working. You need to give these permissions for the app to work. Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, yeah, now let me...
Can I add to what Andrew just shared? So as an example, if you say to the app that whichever platform app you're using that says, no, do not access my contacts, what you will see may be a bunch of numbers that is not tagged to the name of that person. Yeah. So you will then find it very difficult unless you've got really good memory to know, in this case, for example, if I want to contact Lyn, I will have to remember what her number is. Yeah. And then use that number to contact her instead of her name to search, right? So these will be the things that in order to make it easier for you to use. So this is user ease of use, yeah?
All right, so with that, now let's bring the legal perspective, yeah? So having discussed all of these here, Lyn, I'd like to hear your thoughts because there are a lot of accusations that the apps are privacy intrusive, yes, and we also question Facebook's whether we trust Facebook, but put that all aside, just talk about it from a functional angle. And a very important question to you, Lyn, why did WhatsApp do what they did when you said there's no change here? Would you like to share with our audience, at least from a legal perspective? Yeah.
I have to take a guess on this, but the additional information that WhatsApp is disclosing at this point wouldn't be required to be disclosed in the US. So I can only speculate that they've looked at privacy laws elsewhere and said, oh, okay, we'll go to a higher standard than what we have to do in our home country in order to keep other regulators, whether or not they apply to us, a bit happier. And to let users know what's going on, because that's what we think we need to do.
So they were being transparent. Yeah. So what's your advice to all our users from a legal perspective? Would we be more concerned of companies that actually don't tell us what they do with that data? Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would be. And in fact, you know, we don't hear the same things being done by Telegram and Signal, but from my experience working with a number of clients that offer these types of products, I'd be absolutely astonished if they don't do it. I expect that with one of them in the US and one in Russia, they're not thinking that this is personal data, whereas it is considered personal data by some regulators.
So out of curiosity, we went to check out just now at the functional level. Example, Signal does access your calendar, but when we look at the privacy notice, there was no mention of it. Yeah. So it's a bit ironic that, would you agree that the whole world is now upset with WhatsApp for just telling you what they are doing? Yeah. And the attention is now drawn onto to WhatsApp, when the fact is actually a lot of companies are sharing metadata. Now, I just want to make a point here. We're not saying here that we are supporting Facebook, right? I'm just talking about this from a functional angle. Anything else you can share before I ask Dr. Prapanpong to share with us from a regulator's perspective?
No, I mean, I surprised myself by almost feeling sorry for the Facebook group, which is not something that usually happens to me, because I actually thought the lawyer who'd done the changes had done a good job, and it was pretty clear. Maybe they messed up the PR in their announcements. I don't know.
Okay, so Dr. Prapanpong, so we heard from Lyn that the WhatsApp was being transparent, telling you what they're actually doing, and they set the deadline, right? That if you don't meet this deadline, then you shouldn't be using the app and so forth. Would you like to share with us, if you would approach this from a regulator's perspective, yeah, what would your thoughts be? What is WhatsApp trying to do here, but from your perspective? Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing is that what the regulator expects from the operator is transparency that they give to consumers. So when you look at WhatsApp, so they are trying to lay out what the privacy policy and how they use the data of the consumers, they lay out on the table for the consumers to see. So that's on the side, that's the nice part. But then when they change the policy, and they let people know what the policy has changed, then this may be a part where the consumers might get confused a little bit. Partly when you look at the existing sharing patterns that WhatsApp has been doing with Facebook, basically, I would suppose that almost everything remains the same. So it's the same practice that they have been sharing with Facebook for all along, but it's just that their business intentions now with the Facebook company that incorporates both Facebook and WhatsApp, their intention is so clear that they want to move to be more business orientated. They want to be integrated service with these two companies colliding together. So they want to let consumers know upfront that they just want to go down this path. And this is where I give you a choice, right? Because if you are okay with this choice about sharing the information with Facebook, for you in the future, you receive the targeted advertising and the marketing campaigns, etc., etc. So you wouldn't be surprised. But if you don't want to go down this path, then you have options to leave. But now, on one hand, this seems okay. But then on the other hand, let's not forget that the regulator has the duty to see the public interest. And also, we see in a couple of days, and also with the few days ago, and I think recently some of the regulators have made a move to investigate the new terms, whether they are fair to the consumers or not. We see examples of the Turkish Competition Commission making a move to investigate this practice. And we also see the Italian Data Protection Authority raise concerns to the European protection. So this is the area where the regulators will need to be monitoring the practice very closely. And but let's not forget that the WhatsApp, what they are doing now is that they're trying to say to the public that, okay, this is the path that me and Facebook are now moving towards. And if you want to go down that path, then you accept these terms that we provided for you in a transparent way. But if you are not okay with it, then we have a choice for you to leave the app.
All right, so let's focus on what you just said. So you said that Facebook is now moving towards the path of business. They want to integrate WhatsApp with the Facebook family of companies, right? And of course, this creates concerns because people are worried whether lots of information will be shared, and they are worried with the invasive privacy efforts that will be done, integrating everything about you will be known, right? So if we're going to break this discussion on what has not changed, we are now saying that to the individual's usage of WhatsApp, that has not changed materially, yeah? Facebook has announced that it's moving towards the business side of things to help SMEs, yeah? And that personal data will be shared, yeah? And ads will be targeted at you, yeah? So, but those people dealing with the businesses, this is where the new privacy policy has got implications. Would all the speakers agree?
Yeah.
I would agree, but I would like to clarify that the ads, as what I've read, is on Facebook itself and not on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas for some of the other platforms, there was some news announcing that at least one of the platforms on Telegram, they're going to put ads on the platform. Now, how it's going to roll out, I have yet to see, because it's apparently going to be rolled out only this year.
Okay, so what I would like to do right now is I want us to look at what has changed. Let's go back to the developer. So Andrew, you heard the discussion from
Yes.
Dr. Prapanpong. They're moving towards the business side of things, and not surprising because now we got COVID-19, yeah? And they said they want to help the SMEs. And we know that today businesses have WhatsApp Business Edition. They are also promoting their business on the Facebook page, yeah? And it's going to be shopping functionality. And you've given me this picture here, which I would like to explain to everybody, because when we look on the internet, nobody has helped the public to visualize what the WhatsApp integration will look like with Facebook. So I thought it'd be good for all of even our privacy professionals, right? You have to know how to operationalize it. So Andrew, can you explain to everyone, right, of what this integration means and how the sharing of data will happen? And let's address the privacy concern from there.
Yeah, so I think there are some questions in the Q&A about what exactly is WhatsApp Business. So what actually WhatsApp Business is, right, is a platform for businesses to connect with their customers on WhatsApp. So this is how Facebook and WhatsApp are connecting with you. So as you can see from this picture, you can see that this is a shop that and an e-commerce that is selling aeroponic system on Facebook. This is yeah.
And I noticed as this message, this is actually using the messenger, yeah?
Yes, but there's no stopping Facebook from using the WhatsApp to directly converse with you.
Okay, so that's the WhatsApp integration being in here. And I'm sure our readers will know that if you go into Facebook today, you find all kinds of companies promoting. That will be the model that Facebook is trying to build. Dr. Prapanpong, Lyn, is that correct? Just to verify of all of you. Yeah? Okay, so now if I click on the Shop Now button, there's also a shopping functionality in there. So Andrew, can you explain that when I shop using Facebook and I replace this instant messaging with a WhatsApp button, what data has to be exchanged and why? Let's talk about from a functional angle first. Yeah.
So there are different things like which page the user came from. There are things like the IP address, the time, and all that. So these are necessary for companies to track where the user came from and to do all the basic analytics. That is one of the main things. So they are able to track the effectiveness of the ads and whether the ad dollars spent are driving users to your website.
And Celine, from a consumer angle, how would that benefit me? Because I would imagine I'm impatient. When I go there, I want to be able to WhatsApp as opposed to send an email. Would you like to share with us from an operational angle what this would mean before we talk about the privacy concerns? Yeah.
Yep. So look at it from both sides. Yeah. If you're running your business here in terms of operations, you want to make it easy for your consumer to reach you. So here, if you've got a button that says you can click from Facebook, right, their Facebook page to their main websites to do their ordering, that can happen. That makes it easy for you to move from place to place, from Facebook to their websites. Now, if they've got Messenger, you can now contact them. Now, the next thing I assume that they are doing is going to be putting a link for WhatsApp. So which means you likely will then be able to click on that WhatsApp and it links to your WhatsApp. All right.
Yes.
And you can now communicate with the company on their business WhatsApp and your WhatsApp. So that's what is likely going to happen. Now, from the consumer standpoint, right? Right now, when you see something on Facebook you will navigate to their browser page and you find it. I don't know about you guys, but the last 9 months when we are all at circuit breaker, there are times when we all have to buy online because we cannot, leave the house, you cannot go to the shops. And for me, there were times where I was so happy to be able to connect to somebody on the phone. And there are times too often nobody picks up the phone. And in fact, I was able to get to some of the shops only on WhatsApp. Yeah. So that's from the consumer side of things. Yeah. It makes it easy to connect.
So it follows then that you can also talk to someone. Now, Andrew, let me ask you, I'm sure a lot of people are asking here. Now, if you go to Shopee, if you go to Amazon, right, when you make the purchase, there are recommendations for you. They will throw the advertisements. All those are possible only because the metadata is being sent to you. Can you just quickly explain that? And can we expect Facebook to do the same here?
Yeah, so every time you buy something on Shopee or Lazada, every time you see an item, they are collecting and tracking what you're looking at. So let's say if I am looking at a laptop, the next few times I will be seeing more laptops, both on Facebook and in their apps, because they are all using their SDKs. Yeah.
SDK stands for Software Development Kits. Yeah. So that would mean that information, Facebook is actually doing the same thing that's already being done on Shopee and Lazada. Can you confirm that statement?
Yes.
As a developer.
Yes, it's already being done by everybody.
So when we talk about targeted ads, we talk about data being exchanged. Could you also possibly see the straight-through processing that from WhatsApp, you can basically do a quick transaction onto the website? Yeah.
So as what Celine said, WhatsApp Business has two functions. One is to directly order through WhatsApp. Another thing that I've been seeing is that a lot of companies are now moving their support to WhatsApp because WhatsApp is a lot easier to get to people. When I WhatsApp someone, there's an expectation that I will get an answer immediately. Yeah.
So what we're hearing, ladies and gentlemen, is that data is now being exchanged to enable a customer and shopping experience. Yeah. But here's the thing, we also now know that through all of these pages, the businesses are also getting personal data, right? So the issue is not just a worry about what Facebook does with the data, but also what the companies will do with the data, right? So folks, I've just explained the second part of what has changed based on Dr. Prapanpong's point that Facebook is now looking at integrating with the Facebook group of companies to enable the hosting services that we're seeing here, the shopping experiences. Yeah, so I hope this gives everyone a very good understanding from an operational angle. So Lyn, here's the question from you. What are the privacy implications based on what we just explained for Facebook, WhatsApp, and more importantly, for the businesses who are collecting those data?
Well, the main thing that I see is if you're going to be doing any shopping online, you need to be looking at the privacy policy. If I'm going to go and buy artisan flowers that has just popped up, my data is going to go to them so that I can do the shopping. I'm going to want to look at that before I do that. I want to look at their privacy policy and find out what it is that artisan flowers is going to do with my data.
So it's now we've got more worries. We have to worry about Facebook, but we also have to worry about the companies using Facebook, or rather in this case, using the WhatsApp integration. So this is an example of a WhatsApp button being integrated. Yeah,
well, we do, whether or not we had the WhatsApp making it easier for us to do the shopping. If we were shopping from someone, we need to know what they're going to do with their data.
All right. So is it fair then to say that now the privacy issues are a bit deeper because Facebook is one part, but now the companies using the Facebook hosting services, it's now up to them. And I believe I recall reading that they will have to have their own terms of use and privacy policies, as you just said. Can you elaborate on that? And what would your advice be from a legal perspective to our folks out there? Yeah.
No, that's absolutely correct. And I think that as we do more on the e-commerce and the more interconnectedness through this, I think that people are going to become more conscious that their own websites are going to be scrutinized more than they have previously, which should, I hope, incent them to get their own internal data protection policies and their notices up to date and accurate.
Got it. So hearing all this, Dr. Prapanpong, now we noticed that the privacy issues is not just WhatsApp and Facebook, right? And we've also explained the inevitable functionality that data has to be shared in order to enable an e-commerce, enable the consumer, enable the businesses to transact, yeah? But now we have a new equation. We have the businesses, they may or may not know that just using the Facebook hosting services or the shopping feature, that there are obligations under the law. What would your view be from a regulator's perspective?
So I think this is a good situation that we are talking about. So we see, I would like to call it as chains of obligations, right? So no matter the data is taking you from WhatsApp to Facebook or from WhatsApp to the shopping company, there are always chains of obligations. Now, one of the obligations for those companies is that they need to be transparent with the consumers, so they can the consumers can look at it into the privacy policy of the companies. But if they have questions, this cannot stop the consumers from going to the regulator and ask for clarity, ask for whether this practice is the right thing for the companies to do. Then if we have that kind of request from the consumers, the regulator cannot sit still. The regulators have to make a proactive approach and look at the privacy policy, look at the practice. And if the regulators see that there's a foundation of a potential violation of the data privacy law, we need to make the investigations. So we need to look at the both sides of the story, actually. The sides where the obligations are chained to these companies, that the data is transferring from one company to the other company, and whether the obligations to notify the consumers are clear enough. And the other side is the consumer side. So you cannot stop consumers from asking the questions, from questioning the legality of the actions of these companies. But if the complaint arises, the regulator needs to actually take a look at it.
Got it. Now, Lyn, feel free to share your thoughts, right? So can the Singapore regulator, or in your case, Dr. Prapanpong, the Thai regulator, go after Facebook, number one? Number two, can the same regulators go after the companies that is outside? In your case, Dr. Prapanpong, they're targeting Thai customers in Facebook, but they are specifically targeting them for whatever reasons, yeah. So let's hear from both of you. Lyn, you first, Lyn. Yeah.
Sometimes the regulator's powers are limited in a practical way. The PDPC in Singapore, for example, can go after organisations that are located in Singapore or have a representative in Singapore, but it becomes a whole lot more difficult if there's no physical presence here. But then they're going to go after poor artisan flowers, happens to be the example here, but if they can't get the overseas part of the chain, and we see this in some of the enforcement decisions, then they'll go for the local person that is within their jurisdiction.
Got it. Okay. And Dr. Pete, your comments, especially from an extraterritorial perspective, right? So you want to talk about that? Yeah. From the Thai PDPA.
Okay, so if you look at the Thai PDPA, we have the provision that requires the international providers who do not have the local presence in Thailand. But if they are monitoring or offering goods and services to a Thai user, then there are obligations for them to set up the representative office in Thailand for us to have a chance to talk to them locally, to settle the claims or to ask, to make queries about the practices and to make them compliant. But most of the time, this remains to be seen whether this can be enforced thoroughly or not, because I suspect that many international companies might see this as an extra cost that they have to set up the representative office. They might not choose this option to be in Thailand, but then this is a situation that we have to wait and see. But I see the same patterns happening in other regulations as well, that they also require the international organizations who monitor the data of the local users or offering goods or services to the local users to set up the representative office.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from all of you, businesses now need to be careful, right? I believe it's not just Facebook, using a Facebook as your business front, yeah? But let's go back to our original discussion. So WhatsApp privacy policy update doesn't affect the individual users. Nothing has changed, right? In terms of their practices relating to individuals. Would all the speakers agree?
Yes.
Yes.
What has changed is if you are dealing with a business, as you can see from the pages that we have shown you, then personal data will be exchanged, and we have explained that ads will be targeted at you. And we heard from Andrew, you are saying that this is no different on how Lazada throws the ads at you or Amazon making recommendations. So it follows then that if you don't use the business services, there is little to worry about, and just what's left behind is your mistrust for Facebook, whether they will keep doing what they say they will do. Is that the correct message I'm hearing from all of you?
Yes, and I would like to add also that a few things that's been the confusion is with regards to things like, as I mentioned before, the confusion of, all my data are going to be read by Facebook, etc. And that's not true, because the concept of end-to-end encryption is used actually by both Facebook and WhatsApp, actually, and Signal. They both and they are open source encryption protocol, and it goes end to end, right? So you send it to the business or you send it to another friend, WhatsApp cannot read this. It's only you and your friend, all right? And which is why the security of your phone and your account is going to be important here, right? With the two-factor authentication and so on.
And the same will be the case when you share the business, except the metadata, more data will be exchanged. Yep. And be targeting at you. And we heard from Andrew, they will know which page you visited, they will know what your number is, but those are translated to also a positive consumer experience for you. Would that be right?
Yeah, I would say so from a layman, and before Andrew takes it from a technical point, is that if you guys go onto a browser page and you want to find out, let's say in this the flowers thing, you will be that your metadata from your device, whether it's your phone that you're browsing, your tablet you're using to browse, or your computer using to browse, all this metadata will already be collected by the companies who are hosting those web pages.
All right, so with that, Andrew, very quick one for me before I close up and answer the questions, yeah? So from your perspective, everyone is talking about metadata being privacy intrusive. From a developer's perspective, tell me how you could use metadata for security purposes, for something good, because everyone's looking at the bad side, but from your perspective, share with us.
So metadata like the IP address can be used by the company to track bots and all that. So if I notice there's a high volume of bots from a certain IP address, I can block that source. Otherwise, it can bring down the website. I think that is something that we see. We also have malicious websites that are referring traffic and bots and all that. So these are needed to actually do all your security stuff. Yeah.
So metadata has got usefulness from a security angle as well. Yeah.
Yeah. They also
Right.
allow the users to customize the websites to different platforms. So for example, if I notice there are a lot of iOS and Apple users, I would want to develop the website according to their specifications. Yeah.
Got it. So there are practical ways, not just issues of privacy, but there's also real benefits that you have in understanding metadata.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now let's go back to Celine. Now, Celine, yeah, you can see that we've tried to answer all these questions already. Yeah. So Celine, I'm talking about everyone is now jumping ship, migrating. Yeah. What are your thoughts with regards to the older folks? Is it a case of really no choice? Yeah, in the sense that you want to comment on older users and non-savvy users, right? Given this perceived issue of what's going on, do you think that these people will move, and should they move?
Okay, so I think I'll put my answer in two. I had a thought about this, yeah. There will be a group of people who will not move because they are used to how WhatsApp were to be, how it functions. So they're used to it. All their friends are on WhatsApp already, yeah. So there will be a group, and I would venture to guess a big group who will not move because older people tend not to want to move. But there will be a smaller group potentially who may move because they've been frightened by the news they are hearing, because misinformation becomes perceptions becomes fears and reality in their own minds, and they may then move, but they may find themselves that it's like, hey, I have nobody else that I know who's on these other platforms, and you will not then be able to communicate with all the other people if they are not on those platforms anyway. Yeah. So there really is now. If given a few more weeks, a few more months, would there be people who will still move on? Don't know. We have to wait and see. Yeah. So that's one big part of it.
Got it. So folks, I hope that the answers so far have answered all the questions. What are the privacy concerns, right? So nothing has changed. The privacy concerns, as you heard, actually relates to the business usage. So you do your shopping and all of that, you still have the same issue that you shop everywhere, that the privacy issues will be the same. Yeah. What is Facebook trying to do? We already talked about the integration with their Facebook group of companies. Yes. So if you are not going to be integrating or using those services, then it doesn't affect you. Yes, folks. Next one, are they breaking any data protection laws? Dr. Prapanpong, answer that question. Are they at this point in time?
Okay, so I think this is the difficult one to raise because with the spectrum of the privacy law, there seems to be a lot of economic and the business justifications that come into play as well. For example, Facebook now and WhatsApp within the Facebook company is trying to justify that the way that they will integrate all these businesses are the legitimate means to their business. And this is part of the service. So if they justify as that, the transfer of the sharing of information between the Facebook group companies will become unavoidable. So if they use that justifications, they need to put extra care on the personal data protection, which they might do already, or they might be putting more measures into the future. But then the outstanding question that many people will still ask, and that would probably lead to the question whether WhatsApp is breaking any privacy law, is that many people questions, why can't I choose to stay with WhatsApp, but at the same time, I can choose to stay and not sharing information with Facebook, right? So
Okay, let me
why
stop you there.
can't I
Sorry, let me
have
stop you
this
just to make
option?
sure that I stop you just to make sure everyone understands. So this is what everyone is concerned with, right? Why has Facebook giving me an ultimatum? Yeah, by February 8th, I have to agree. So folks, I'm talking about that. So Dr. Prapanpong, you want to continue and elaborate on that? And Lyn, I want to hear your thoughts too. Yeah. Okay, so people will be asking you, then why are you not giving us a choice? Over to you, Dr. P. Continue what you were saying. Sorry for interrupting, because I want to make sure that that's the important part that is on everyone's mind. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So that question about why can't I choose to stay on the platform and at the same time not sharing the data at Facebook. This again would lead to the point where I say when Facebook companies have justified that their business aims now and their service is to be integrated service. So I would suppose, but I would like to get more information as well, that in Facebook, I'm making the assumption for them actually, in order to be in a part of this integrated service, Facebook and WhatsApp cannot partition the data of what's not to be shared and what is to be shared. So when they are all under these platforms, I would suppose that they would see this as the impossible job to do, to partition the ones that are not going to be sharing and the one who are going to be shared. So they give the choice to the consumers and say, hey, we are moving to become this integrated service, and this is our business aim now. If you want to take part, then opt in. If you see this is not the right choice for you, you have the choice to leave.
Got it. So that's why it's free. Yeah. Lyn, your thoughts on this in terms of business model? Facebook is saying, hey, this is our business model. We can't partition it because it's hard, right? Half share, half don't share, and stuff like that. Give us your thoughts on that. Yeah.
I was going to answer it in the terms that you just raised, actually. If it's free, you're the product. So it seems to me that you've got the choices. I'm going to take a free service or a paid service. If I'm going to take a free service, I'm going to get advertising because that's how the business model has to work. It's not a charity. If there's going to be advertising directed to me, do I want it to be targeted so that I might be interested in it, or do I prefer to get any old thing and a lot of dross? So they're the basic questions. Facebook saying we want to serve you with targeted advertising, so because we think that, I'm sure we think that will enable us to charge more for the advertising, but it'll also make the service more appealing to users because they'll get things they're interested in. Whether or not that's right, I don't know, but it seems the most likely way they'd be thinking about it.
All right. So before I answer the question, I got a magic question to ask all of you. Lyn, let's go back to the topic. Move or don't move?
No, I'll just stay where I am, but I'm not likely to go shopping with them.
Okay, so you stay with WhatsApp, but you're not on Facebook, but you're not going to move to another platform.
No.
Got it. Okay, let's hear from Andrew, being a developer. Would you move from WhatsApp because of what we just shared here or not?
No, but I have all four on my laptop now, talking to different people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Celine, our psychologist here, are you going to move or not move?
I will answer in two parts, right? I can't help but answer in parts. Number one is personally, I like Andrew, I've got 3, 4, 5 of the messaging platforms on my phone, right? But mainly I'm on WhatsApp, and in that sense, because it makes it easy for me to reach out. Now, I want to give the second part of my answer for the folks out there who's DPOs and who's grappling with move or not to move. I want to offer you a few things to consider. Number one, who's your audience? Yeah. Is it you as a company reaching out to your customers, you as a company reaching out to your colleagues, and you are conversing? What's your purpose for using this messaging platform? Be it WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, etc. There are many, many more, right? Are you using it to connect with your friends and family? Are you using it for work-related communications? queries from customers, etc. Now, the more important questions comes next. Based on your audience type, your purpose, then what are the features on each platforms that allow you to reach out to your various audience? Yeah. Now, Dr. Prapanpong talks about choice. Then this is the question of control. Do you have a control as an admin in the various groups you're setting up in the platforms? Do you have control as a user in the various groups? Do you have control as a user to user? Yeah. And what I've discovered is there are certain controls as a user I do not have when I'm in groups, such as in Signal. If I leave a group, my number is still in the group until the admin takes it off, right? Am I comfortable with that? Not really, right? But the other groups as an admin, apparently you can delete what the other people post, right? So you now then need to look at the risks of using every one of these platforms, right? Now, Telegram has been touting, they can reach out to what, 200,000 people? I worry. If I've got 200,000 people in a group, right? If somebody sends something wrong, and we have had groups, now some of you in some of those groups where people accidentally send wrong things, right, to the wrong groups.
Including personal data.
Yes, including personal data. Now, it means that 200,000 people will have those data, right? So there will be bigger impacts when you got bigger group. But if you are a news platform and you are on these platforms, it's fine because your purpose is to reach out to the bigger group, right? So these are some of the things to consider. And finally, how they are encrypting the various things. Do they have access to the crypto keys in the back end? Do they have end-to-end encryption for all the features, or it's for some features but not for all features, etc.? And moving forward, how each of these platforms need to address the increase in expenses that they're going to have when the number of user base is going to increase. Telegram has got what, 400 million now? What if Telegram goes
after
500 million? Yeah, after now. Yeah. Signal has what, 20, 30 million? What if Signal goes up to 500 million? Who's going to fund, all right? And how are they going to get the expenses to host 200, 300 million users, right?
So they charge people eventually, yeah?
There needs to be a way for them to charge people, all right? So if it's going to be free, it's got to come from somewhere, all right? So look at this when you are the DPOs looking to decide whether to move or not to move. Maybe at the end of the day, it's how you train your folks to change the way they use the platforms and how they're using those platforms. Okay,
thank you, Celine. Okay, so Dr. Prapanpong, I'm going to ask you as an individual, because you cannot wear the regulator's hat. As an individual, move or don't move?
Okay, so my personal interest is still hanging on the crave of wanting to see what they are going to do. So I'm going to stick around.
All right. So with that, folks, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking questions from what you guys have posted. Yeah. One person is asking, was wondering whether Singapore's PDPC would seek more clarification from Facebook and WhatsApp on the new TNC. Lyn, quickly answer that. Yeah.
I think I'm not the PDPC, obviously. My best guess is that they will look at the change and go, oh yeah, okay, fine. Because there's virtually no change, really.
Got it. So we've summarized that. Yeah. So I think we clarified this. Why my personal WhatsApp got to do with the terms and conditions change pop-up, asking for acceptance of the terms, but I'm not using any business WhatsApp unless they are the same app, right? So this answer is inevitable because you're using WhatsApp in your everyday interaction on a Facebook page. You might come across this and therefore you are implicated. It's up to you whether you want to use the service or not. So I hope they've answered the question. Any of you want to add on for that question?
I like to add on, and that's so if you're going to talk to the organization with a business app, now I have downloaded the WhatsApp business, yeah, and it's a different account. I have to use a different phone number. All right, but it doesn't take my data from my phone unless I give it permission, right? So that's why I was able to provide you with some of those insights. But they will probably have to let you know that this is going to be merged or this is going to be shared the moment you start talking to a company using a WhatsApp business.
Exactly.
Yeah? Which is integrated with Facebook, right? They have to tell you. right? So that's why they are telling you that that's what happened, and you will have to say yes, right?
Yeah. So it has to do you because you're using WhatsApp. But if you're going to be WhatsApping a business, then that's where the problem is. So you don't use it. If you don't want to use it, then fine. That's what they're saying. Yeah. Okay. Another question. Can you please repeat the pros and cons of Signal being able to edit users' SMS? Okay. So Andrew, can you explain what that means? Because the rest of them don't interfere with your SMS. Signal does. Can you just quickly summarize the pros and cons? Yeah.
So the pro is that Signal can read and help you send back SMSs and manage it for you. The con is that if someone were to hack the app, they can, for example, trigger your iBanking and read your OTP and access your bank account using the SMS that was sent from like DBS.
Because the SMS feature is integrated into Signal. All right. So the person asked that. I hope we've answered your question. Okay, here's another one. Can we go ahead and do Salesforce integration with WhatsApp and start communicating with our leads with their consent? Up to the customers, if they have consented to communicating over WhatsApp as a company, you should be fine with it. What are your thoughts? So Lyn, you want to answer that question? That pretty much is applicable to anyone using WhatsApp collecting data, yeah? Or integrating that data. Your comments, Lyn.
Yeah, I think so. I don't fully understand the question of what they're trying to achieve. If it's about Salesforce
integration,
WhatsApp business, okay. If it's integrating WhatsApp with Salesforce, I think that's a question for Salesforce and WhatsApp.
Yeah, but the rules of the data protection kicks in, right? You got to notify them, right? That Salesforce is using the WhatsApp function. You got to stick to all the rules, yeah.
Okay.
So if the question elaborate on that.
If I should be looking at the question as if Salesforce was substituted for Facebook, yeah, you've got to let them know. But the privacy notice for WhatsApp talks about third parties generally. It names Facebook group of companies. It doesn't name other third parties. So arguably, even as it stands at the moment, Salesforce could be in there.
Yeah. Okay, there's a question. I hope you folks are also looking in the Q&A, and you are free to pick anyone that you would like to answer. But here's an interesting one, but I don't think we got time to go into full detail. I think this question is asking a joint controller question, right?
Yeah, I think we need to stay away from that, or we'll...
Yeah, it will take too long. So I guess a quick answer to that question, which says, will the role of the processor and controller not be tough to assign in such interactions, considering that the roles are unclear in the beginning? Yeah. So if a business is using Facebook and you are also a business and Facebook is also a business, therefore both are controllers, you now have a concept of a joint controller. So the lines get blurred just as a vendor on Lazada or vendor on Shopee. Yeah.
Yeah, for anyone who...
A quick phrase so that we don't spend too long on this. Your thoughts, Lyn?
Anyone who really wants to know about this, have a look at the EDPB guidelines on controllers, processors, and joint controllers. They've got a lot of good examples.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a very interesting question. What do you think WhatsApp could have done differently to have avoided the unintended consequences of these changes? Is it a case of policy that was too technical, 12 pages of too much legalese, of course, which Lyn has no problem reading? Or is it a simple case that mentioning Facebook in any context of privacy is just a toxic and nothing can be done because of mistrust, I assume? What could have been done better from a PR perspective?
Yeah, Patrick, I think you're right. It's just toxic, so people automatically, as I did, think there must be something bad going on.
All right, so in the interest of time, I will leave the speakers to pick the questions that you would like to answer. There are only about a few left, yeah?
A WhatsApp account, and I don't use Facebook. I've got an account, but I don't use it. I'm just not planning on using it for shopping. So yeah. I'll keep on using it as a messaging thing as exactly the same way as I do now.
Got it. Okay, thank you for that. Can you click on answer live and then you click done, right? Okay, Celine or Dr. P or Andrew, you guys can pick questions and let me know, and then we'll answer one each. Yeah.
I see a question that says, can we still use WhatsApp if we do not use WhatsApp Business? Yes, the short answer is yes, you can. And again, it comes back to who's your audience. Are you talking to your family? Are you communicating with your colleagues? That's still fine. Yeah, so that's for the WhatsApp personal account still. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you go to a Facebook page and you see a WhatsApp button down there, just be aware data is being exchanged. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a clarification we would like to make. If you don't do any
And
of-
maybe I will add on to the next part here. If people are thinking about that already, what happens in the future, right? The future is likely going to be that our personal behaviors will change. Just as when in the days of old, all right, contracts are signed with physical contracts, physical piece of paper. But now we are so used to sending the contracts via emails, yeah? And I have actually seen sometimes these documents are sent through WhatsApp. So is it going to move further and further into being able to use it on all these digital platforms? I actually think so. All right. So again, just be aware if you are the DPOs in the organization, take note of what the risks are when you move to these other platforms.
Thank you for that. Dr. Prapanpong, would you like to pick a question and then answer? You can either answer as a lawyer or you answer as a regulator's perspective.
I only see, I see the questions, but I think I want to pick the question from.
Can you repeat the question and then, repeat the question so that administrators can help. Yeah.
Okay.
What is the question and
Okay.
what's your answer?
What about California laws which say clearly that data should not be shared? How is this taken care of? Now, I think the main reason that WhatsApp is issuing this privacy policy is because of the California law, actually. And the justifications, like I said, that Facebook and WhatsApp wants to be integrated into under the Facebook company groups, then the justifications for business to move forward and the data must be shared.
Excellent. Thank you for that question. Yeah. Andrew, pick one and answer.
I think there's a question about the updated policy. While the updated policy does not affect individual users, however, if individual users who interact with WhatsApp business users, for example, if you're using the DPS WhatsApp business account, would the updated policy allow for data shared by individual users to a business user be exploited and used? So, so when like I think we've said, when you interact with a business account, right, some basic details are being sent across, like your number, maybe your profile pic, and your display name. As to whether it can be used, or if the company can call you back for another purpose, I think that's really up to their data policy. Will Facebook kick them out if they do that on a large-scale basis? I'll leave that for the rest to address.
Okay, so that's a good question, right? So again, the laws will go after that particular company, right? There are rules for them as we covered just now. Thank you for that. Okay, in the interest of time, we've got one or two more questions. Lyn, there's a question for you. Yeah, can you look for that and then answer? Yep. For the rest of the speakers, you might want to pick any questions that are addressed specifically to you, and then I'll do a very quick close up. Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, have I got any tips on how to quickly read key points of online privacy policies and various websites? You know, you see a number of red flags. One of the red flags that I see is if I open a privacy policy and it's full of legalese, full of horrible paragraphs that are a page long and everything, you know what? They're not trying to communicate with you. So I see that as a red flag, and I tend to avoid anyone that uses that. If they are readable and legible and they're a good piece of communication, then you will know what it is they're doing, what it is they're not doing. I can't answer for the technical things that Andrew covered, but for your CUDS, you know, is it sounding okay to me? Is it something that I personally feel comfortable with doing?
Got it.
It's simple as that, really.
Okay, since you're online, there's one which is the WhatsApp under the DNC regulations?
Yes, it is.
Because there's a telephone number involved.
Yes, I mean, I believe that's always been the case, but they've made it very clear in the new amendments. Okay,
excellent. So with that, folks, what I want to do right now is ask everybody this question. Yeah, so I would like to find out from you. It's your turn, ladies and gentlemen, after hearing from you. Yeah. What are your thoughts after hearing from the panel? Do you still intend to migrate? Is it yes? Is it no? You're still sitting on the fence, or that you have changed your mind after listening to everyone? You can either say no. If you had said no, and if you were thinking of moving, now you change your mind, then put the last one as well, right? Folks, there are 100 over of you guys. Help us out. Give us the information here. Yeah. So now we see more people not wanting to, they don't want to migrate. Yeah. Okay. So I'll give you some time. Yeah. And for the speakers here, if there are any other questions that intrigue you, you just have to answer them by all means. Yeah.
So while people are answering the Mentimeter, I would like to answer this one. This person's asking, will WhatsApp be able to capture an image sent and deleted immediately? If you're talking about two things, yeah, disappearing messages, WhatsApp has recently added a new feature where your message can disappear after 7 days, but you must enable it, and it's by choice. So you can do it for different people, but you must enable it individually, right? So that's one part of the answer. Second part answer is, can you delete it immediately? Yes, you need to click delete for all. And it must be done within, I believe, an hour, right? If it's after 1 hour, then you will not be able to do so. So and so this is the feature I'm talking about, that as a user, if you send something wrongly, within an hour, you can still delete it, and you will delete if you have sent it to a group for everybody. Okay, so that hopefully will answer your question.
Excellent. All right. So with that, folks, before I end this session, I would like to hear closing words from Lyn. Lyn, what's your advice to everyone? Yeah, based on the current debate here. Let's hear from every one of you, and then we close off the discussion. Right? 1 minute. Lyn, over to you first. Yeah.
Don't panic if you use WhatsApp for shopping, check the website of the merchant, check their privacy policy.
So you heard it. Check out, just because Facebook has got a vendor inside, check out that vendor as well. Yeah, thank you for that, Lyn. Andrew, from a developer's perspective, what advice would you want to give to everyone that you want to reinforce to all?
So as mentioned, right, WhatsApp Business is crucial in trying to reach out to your customers because everyone is on WhatsApp. So don't believe whatever there is out there. Just stay true to what we've said.
But can we trust you as a developer? I'm just kidding. Yeah? Celine, your thoughts. What would your one takeaway point for everyone here based on our current answers and what we have discussed?
First, make sure that you know what the information is about. You check the source and you understand what it is relevant to you and that it is accurate. Yeah. Please make sure you check and ensure that whatever it is you're reading and whatever you're going to share is accurate. And if you're going to make decisions on what it is you're going to be doing, be very clear and that you have tested all of the different features, you understand the impact and implications of the features of these apps that you are going to be using.
And not a knee-jerk reaction. Yeah.
That's right.
And finally, from you, Dr. Prapanpong, what would your advice be? Yeah. You can take any hats you want from either a regulator perspective or as an academic. Yeah.
On the academic, I prefer. So you can look at the information that's available out there, that the company is being transparent in the privacy policies. Also make use of that information and make up your mind. And don't forget that you can always have the choice to stay in the service, the choice to leave. But I think that this is the beginning of what's to come in the future. I think in the future, there's going to be so much more interesting aspects into this kind of area.
Excellent. Thank you for all the speakers. So with that, let me quickly summarize, right? Nothing has changed with regards to the new WhatsApp privacy policy if you are using it from an individual perspective. What has changed is the integration with the Facebook companies, where, as we showed you just now, the information will be shared in your correspondence with them. You'll be targeted with ads, data will be exchanged, and that's where we heard the excellent perspective from Andrew, who has given you a behind-the-scenes perspective, right? And you heard the opinions from Celine, from a psychological perspective and operational perspective. Lyn shared with you the legal side of it, where she said actually nothing has changed. And from Dr. Prapanpong, you're hearing the message that the regulators are still watching. Is that right, Dr. Prapanpong? With that,
that's always right.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank all of you for joining us here at the Data Protection Excellence Network. Yeah, and for those of you who are new to our Data Protection Excellence Network, we would like to invite you to join our website at dpexnetwork.org. Sign up as a member if you are interested on issues relating to privacy, right? Or looking at privacy from a career perspective, or if you are a data protection professionals. With that, for all the folks whom we know out there, for all the folks who have attended our participants attending our courses, our clients, we'd like to say hello to you and we wish you a fantastic new year ahead. All right, with that, thank you so much to all of you, and I really hope you enjoyed our debate on WhatsApp and you decide whether you want to move or not to move. Thank you, everyone.